Nine figures. How'd you get there?
It's called hustling nonstop. I have 25 ventures and partnerships. Just got back from Dubai. I'm going to Canada Friday.
What are you
Tonight
doing in
we in the
Canada?
club out here in the strip club. We performing. Itself will cover all my expenses for the year. It's just that consistent nonstop balance.
Rick Ross got caught flying economy class. The man who spent 20 years telling the world he moves exclusively on private jets, who has rapped about private aviation on what feels like every third song of his career, was photographed in a commercial economy seat like a regular human being who does not own a 109-room mansion. The internet lost its mind. And then his explanation came out and somehow made it worse. Ross said his private jet was getting Starlink installed. Satellite internet, Wi-Fi upgrade, that was the story. His jet was in the shop for a connectivity upgrade, so he hopped on a commercial flight in economy while the work was being done. Here is the problem with that. When your jet is unavailable for any reason, you charter. That is what people with actual private jet money do. You call a charter company, you pay for a one-way flight on someone else's aircraft, and you arrive without ever touching the commercial gate. Charter flights exist specifically for this situation. At the financial level Ross has always claimed to operate at, chartering a single flight is not even a meaningful expense. It is a rounding error. And if for some reason chartering was off the table, you go first class. You go business class. You do not end up in economy unless something is wrong that goes well beyond a Starlink installation. What made the response worse was the energy behind it. He did not laugh it off. He did not own it with humor. He came back hard and defensive, pushing the Starlink story like it was almost a flex. Like getting satellite internet installed on your jet is itself a status symbol. The harder he pushed the explanation, the less believable it got. Real money does not explain the economy seat. Real money just buys another ticket and moves on. The defensiveness was the tell. To understand why this landed the way it did, you need to understand what Rick Ross actually built. Because the peak was real. William Leonard Roberts II came out of Carol City, Miami, and engineered one of the most deliberate images in hip-hop history. At the top of his run, roughly 2012 to 2016, multiple outlets estimated his net worth somewhere between $75 million and $100 million. That was not just rap money. Maybach Music Group was a genuine force. He had signed Meek Mill, Wale, Gunplay, and built a label that was producing real cultural momentum and real revenue under a Warner Brothers deal. His Wingstop franchise portfolio, reportedly over 24 locations at its height, was a legitimately smart business move for an artist thinking beyond music. The Promised Land estate in Fayetteville, Georgia, 109 rooms, the largest swimming pool in the state, its own go-kart track, was purchased for roughly $2 million in 2010 and valued significantly higher. The touring income was substantial. The endorsement deals were real. At peak, Rick Ross was genuinely wealthy, and the boss persona was backed at least partially by actual numbers. So what happened to it? The honest answer is that for most of his career, Ross was not building. He was flexing. And there is a massive difference between those two things. Building means using resources to create systems that generate more resources. Flexing means using resources to impress people who are not paying your bills. Ross chose flexing, loudly, deliberately, and at enormous ongoing cost. The car collection at various points included multiple Rolls-Royces, multiple Bentleys, a Lamborghini, custom lowriders, and a range of other vehicles, each costing more than most people's houses. Not one or two nice cars for personal enjoyment. An armada accumulated specifically to be seen and photographed. The jewelry spending across his career runs into the millions. Custom chains, diamond-encrusted pieces, watches that cost more than annual salaries, all documented publicly and worn constantly. But the most expensive flex was the mansion. A 109-room property sounds like an asset until you realize what it costs to maintain. Staff, utilities, security, upkeep on a property of that size runs significant money every single month. Money going out the door, whether income is coming in or not. People close to the situation have suggested the Promised Land alone was a serious ongoing financial drain. Add the private jet usage, the entourage costs, the constant travel, and the recording and label expenses, and you start to see a situation where the outflows were massive and the inflows, while once impressive, were not keeping pace. The lifestyle was never designed to be sustainable. It was designed to be impressive. That distinction matters a lot more now that the income picture has shifted. The music industry changed dramatically starting around 2015. Physical and digital album sales collapsed as streaming took over. Streaming pays at rates that are notoriously low. A million plays on Spotify generates roughly $3,000 to $5,000 before splits with labels, publishers, and collaborators. For an artist who built his commercial model in an era of album sales and unit movement, the streaming landscape looks fundamentally different from what the peak years looked like. Touring income became even more critical as a result, which is exactly why the ticket situation is so damaging. Rick Ross ran a buy one get one free promotion on his concert tickets. Let that land for a second. The biggest boss, the man whose entire brand is built on exclusivity, on the idea that he is a premium product people should be grateful to access, running a 2-for-1 deal on his shows. That is the live event equivalent of a luxury car dealership putting a going out of business banner in the window. It is the move you make when you need bodies in seats so badly that the financial logic of the discount outweighs the reputational cost of being seen as a product people do not want to pay for. And the kicker, even after the BOGO promotion, tickets were still not moving the way they needed to. People looked at a deal giving them 2 tickets for the price of 1 and still decided the price of 1 was too much. 3 things are driving this. First, cultural relevance. Ross is not at the center of hip-hop conversation the way he was in 2012. The artists dominating now are a generation removed from his peak moment. His core audience has aged, and the younger listeners filling venues are not riding for Ross the way his original fanbase did. Relevance has a shelf life, and maintaining it requires constant reinvention that has not fully happened. Second, the persona is cracking. The Ross experience was never just about the music. It was about buying into the fantasy he was selling. When the fantasy starts showing real cracks, the audience starts to disconnect. Third, the relationship was always transactional. Ross did not build the kind of deep, personal connection with fans that survives a down period. The connection was built on spectacle. And spectacle is the most fragile kind of audience relationship there is, because when it stops working, there is nothing underneath holding people there. The Wingstop situation adds another layer. At its peak, the franchise portfolio was a genuinely smart move. But running a franchise portfolio is not passive income. It requires management, oversight, reinvestment, and sustained attention. When you are a celebrity with 100 other demands on your time, and your primary skill set is making music rather than operating food service businesses, maintaining a large franchise portfolio at a high level is genuinely difficult. Reports suggesting the Wingstop business has faced significant challenges in recent years, combined with declining music income and underperforming tours, paint a picture of multiple income streams weakening simultaneously, while the fixed costs of a legacy lifestyle remain constant. That math only goes one direction. The economy seat is the physical, visual, undeniable moment where the gap between the performance and the reality became visible in a way the audience could not miss. It is not just a funny photo. It is the curtain slipping. It is 20 years of being told how this man moves, followed by a single image that tells a completely different story. And here is the real loss in all of this. There was a version of Rick Ross that was actually doing something worth respecting. A kid from Carroll City who built a label, made smart real estate moves, diversified into franchises, and created real infrastructure around a music career. That version existed, but it got buried under the version that needed to spend millions on things designed exclusively to make other people feel small, that chose the performance of wealth over the preservation of it. Money, at least in theory, can be rebuilt. Credibility, once the audience decides they are no longer buying what you are selling, is a much harder thing to recover. The biggest boss. Economy class, row 27. Tray table down. Drop a comment. Is there any coming back from this for Ross, or is the era officially over?